Hi guys, I'm back again in Let's Talk Corporate Life. Today I'm at Westville with my brother and friend Baxter. I said, Baxter, I want to come to your home. Let's have the conversation and shoot it and be live. So you'll hear more about Baxter's life. Baxter. It's been how many years now? 5 years.
2019 we met.
2019, yeah. So, no?
Yeah, SAST.
Yes, yeah. Okay, yes, actually. Yo, that's been long, eh? And we went to Joburg. Oh, you guys left. And we continued and we went to Joburg. Yeah, 2019. Since 2019, I beat his ass with my team.
We were on the same team.
No?
Yes.
Oh, we lost. Jesus. With Mendy.
We won. We won SART and we lost ART.
Oh, yes.
2019.
We were, yeah. That was bad, ne? Now I remember.
We met.
It was
2019, Team Eden. Me.
Team Eden, Mendy, yes. No, it was 2020.
No, 2019, end of the year, because it was part of the UFL. Wasn't part of the process, but it was during the same time as the election process.
By the time, I already knew that we have the job. We didn't know.
We didn't know yet.
I remember with Mendy. Yeah. And then we won the SA.
IT.
And then Kenya.
At the beginning of the next year, we had to prep for ART, which was the Lipton Challenge.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we were supposed to go to Joburg for that, but because of COVID, we couldn't.
We couldn't.
So we just did it virtually. And then
by the time we were working
I don't remember whether it was the East African team or the West African team that won it though.
I think it was Kenya.
Might have been,
because we were the Africa one was talking about tea.
Yeah.
How to make tea cool.
Yeah.
That was a cool idea.
Yeah.
That we came up with.
I thought I was in school.
We were supposed to win. It's just that they came up with numbers and what. But we did great.
Interesting innovation ideas. Sounded good on paper.
Yeah. But in terms of reality, I don't think so.
They had some good ideas. I remember they had like a frozen tea, like a slushy type.
Yes. Oh wow.
Events and festivals.
Oh wow, yes. But also they didn't go because of the COVID stuff. They did their finals online as well.
Probably.
Yeah.
I really remember that.
Because it's the same with you when in 21 you went for
One Young World.
One you're supposed to go there in, was it Barcelona? No?
Munich in Germany.
Yes. And then because of COVID.
They did have the conference. They did have it in Munich,
mm-hmm.
And it was open to a set number of people, but because of the Unilever travel policies, obviously at that stage it was
we were not allowed to. Yes.
That time. So as much as the world had started to open up again post-COVID, we were still quite in it, and a lot of the places hadn't opened yet, and so Unilever still very much had a strict stance on
to
travel,
say no,
which I think was right, but it did mean that while some people were meeting in Munich for the conference, it meant that I was
to do it online. Oh God. You've been up there, because after that you also okay, we'll get there. I'm ahead of myself now. Okay, but let's introduce yourself to people. Who's Michael Baxter? I know you, so that's why I just shoot into the conversation. But please tell our viewers and listeners who's Michael Baxter. And then we can kick off.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Michael, but as Bizo over here has introduced me, Baxter is something you'll hear a little bit more. It's just my surname. So growing up and in high school, Baxter was a common term. And now at my church, I always have to introduce myself. My name's Michael, but you'll hear Baxter more. Very involved in local church home ground, and for the past 6 years been working at Unilever, where, as I said, I met Mike and we worked together for a couple of years before we moved on to bigger, better things. And now currently working with the Magnum Ice Cream Company. I'm very passionate about football and soccer, Arsenal supporter, devoted to it. Love playing whenever I can get a game. Also quite enjoy coffee, and specifically specialty coffee. And took Mike once to
I remember.
we had a bit of a coffee tasting experience.
And there was that one ugly coffee you gave me.
He's talking about an espresso.
That was a good experience, though.
And
Yeah.
otherwise, 2 younger brothers and 3 dogs that are running around here somewhere. So maybe they'll pop up in this episode. And we were just saying hello to them earlier. But yeah, that's
Nice.
a bit about me.
Nice. Before you go deeper into your life and your career, I always ask people when I'm having a conversation with them, especially for this channel, in terms of like, when I don't see myself as a person who will follow, and no one is supposed to be in that mindset, even though you don't have a title of a leader. You are a leader, one way or the other. Somewhere, somehow, as a person, you are a leader. You might not have the title leader or manager or whatever, but one way or the other, you're the leader. So there's this question I want to ask you. In terms, this question says, what has been troubling you lately? What has been on your mind and sometimes keeps you awake at night? And it doesn't have to be like work or maybe church, maybe South Africa as a whole. There's a whole lot of stuff that is going on in South Africa. As Michael Baxter, as an individual, as a leader, what has been like the most thing that has been troubling you lately?
Yeah. So personally, what's been keeping me up at night or troubling me recently is what the next 8 years holds for me. And because a lot of my life decisions are grounded in my faith, I don't think that that's all down to me to have to figure out.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know that you can't predict the next 8 years. But the reason I say the next 8 years is I've jumped around a lot and changed what I'm doing a lot. And I feel like over the last 6 or 7 years since finishing university, I've really been focused on how can I learn as much as I can. And that's always going to be my mentality. But at some stage, I know I need to shift to how can I have a bit more focused impact in a single direction. I joined Unilever because of their mission to make sustainable living commonplace. And I thought, what does that look like for a fast-moving consumer goods company that's producing millions of tons a year of plastic, but has this sustainability mission and what they then called the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan that Paul Polman had initiated.
Yeah.
And so that was of interest to me. And I thought, big corporates aren't going anywhere. And so I was kind of at this crossroads after finishing university of, do I want to go work at the church? Do I want to go work for an NGO? Do I want to go into corporate? Do I want to go and do my own thing from a entrepreneurial perspective? And I knew at that stage I didn't have the self-discipline for the entrepreneurial route. And as much as I was very drawn towards towards nonprofit or church work, I knew that big corporates had a big role to play in terms of any social change. And so I've always thought I really want to make a difference when it comes to social change. But I wanted to learn how that was being done through companies. And therefore I wanted to join a company like Unilever, who claimed to be on the front foot when it came to a lot of these kind of important agendas. And so that was the goal for me. Join Unilever. I didn't really care too much about the function that I joined into or what work I was doing. I just wanted to learn and jump around a little bit and understand the inner workings at a local level, at a global level. What does it look like to create change? And I feel like over the last 5 or 6 years, I've been able to accomplish a lot of the goals that I set out for myself when joining Unilever. And the company, to some extent, has changed. I'm still grateful that they are very focused on sustainability and still very much a pioneer in that space. But make sustainable living commonplace is no longer the mission. It's now brighten.
It's results now.
It's brighten everyday life for all, and that just means something different. And so I think results are always going to be important when you're in a public traded company, and there has to be that balance. But we've always said that the way you get results is by doing good. So do well by doing good. And so I still believe that that's possible, and that's something that Paul Polman showed. But yes, there are challenges when you're operating in a public market, and that's kind of what I wanted to learn. So I've been able to learn that. So long winding route to get to the answer to say that I'm now at a pivot point where I feel like I've achieved a lot of the goals that I'd set out for myself in joining Unilever. And I'm now thinking about what does the next period of time look like for me if I were to devote that to one particular problem or mission or purpose that's a little bit more in the direction of social impact? And I have quite a few thoughts, but I don't know that I've necessarily landed on exactly where I can add the most value. What is the longest lever that I can pull when it comes to social change? And I think that we see there are so many issues in our country and around the world. I think for me, the pivotal point has always been about shared humanity. And I mean, we've had lots of conversations about what does it look like to almost restore a spirit of Ubuntu.
100%.
And so being able to acknowledge shared humanity and make sure that that's a bit more widespread in terms of people's approach to just being human to one another is where my passion lies. And it's what brought me towards HR. And it's what drives my volunteering in the church, because I believe that we have an innate worth found in Jesus. And so that's a huge part of my driving North Star. And at the moment where I'm at in my career of looking at what does the longer term, deeper lens look like, it's where am I going to be able to add the most value in terms of driving that sense of shared humanity. And so that's troubling me. Obviously, there's a lot of polarization in the world at the moment. It was a similar thing at the time of George Floyd's murder, and it's the same thing now around the time of Charlie Kirk for different reasons. And for me, I don't enjoy paying too much attention to that, because I'd much rather be interested in what's happening in our country. Obviously, there is a lot of political conversation happening at the moment in the country. And I don't really feel that we need to go into any of that too much in this conversation.
100%,
but I think that the underlying, how do we show humanity through all of these different things, and how do we find common ground and break down walls that divide to create unity, is always going to be a primary focus for me. And so finding a way where I can do that from a career perspective in a way that allows me to lean into that is what troubles me at the moment. Is what is the best way to bring people together, and how do I devote my time to that?
That is powerful, Baxter. Telling you what, this thing of Ubuntu, it's something that we had as let's talk about South Africa, talk about Africa as a continent. It's something that it's the foundation of Africa, of South Africa. But I moved last year from here in Durban to Joburg. There's a huge difference between these two provinces. This is just my personal view and my experience so far in Joburg. We have 0 or 0.5 Ubuntu in Joburg versus Durban. Durban, like people, like there's so much love. There's that spirit of Ubuntu, helping each other. In Joburg, that thing is not there. Like people of Johannesburg, or maybe should I say 4 ways where I stay, we don't have Ubuntu. Like you don't greet someone, you just pass someone. There's no hey, hi, sure. Even guys, we don't greet each other. Like in Durban, like sure, hey, how's it? Have a short conversation and then you move. You don't see that thing in Johannesburg. It's like everyone's like, I'm in my lane. I don't want any trouble. I'm going to where I'm going. I don't care about what's happening in my surrounding. Of course, this might be different to someone else's opinion, but this is my experience so far in Johannesburg. I'm like, yo, this is what I miss in Durban, like greeting a stranger and having a short conversation with a stranger and continue with my way. So I actually relate a lot on that, and that's a great mission to actually want to, what's the English word? For the lack of a better word to say, invoke that spirit of Ubuntu in whatever space that we are in. I think it's a powerful space.
And obviously, we did the purpose workshop going into Unilever. Joining employees to a purpose workshop, because there was this fundamental belief in purpose. And where I landed there was create change through care and creativity. Now, I think I'm looking at, that's the broader terms. How do we care for people, but how do we find creative solutions that we can create change?
Yeah.
I'm now looking at, to simplify my answer to what's troubling me, is how do I go deeper into a more specific, because that's very vague. It's very broad. It's very, it's very up in the air. In terms
Yeah.
of how do you create Ubuntu or bring people together? That's a very broad mission. And I think I'm looking at what is the specific problem in that, what's the subset that I want to be focusing in that domain where I can add the most value. And I think that there's definitely a focus somewhere in there in terms of youth development and leadership development, because those have been two pivotal pieces to my own development and a lot of my career so far. And so that's definitely going to be a part of that puzzle. I think I was also listening to, I don't know if it was a podcast or a reel recently, and they said that, interesting to your point, they said that as economies develop and as cities develop, community diminishes.
Sure.
And so you go from a village raising a child, it's a saying that you need a village to raise a child. You go from a village raising a child to needing to pay for childcare.
Sure.
and there's just this loss of one anotherness and supporting one another. But I think it is so contextual to where you're at, because I've also been in London and gone to dinner at a house where they have a kind of community housing type setup. Rent in London is so expensive. And so it's this group of people that had come together to share a rent cost, but it became this community house of sorts that would invite, friends. You could bring friends to dinner, and there was kind of schedules of who was doing dinner on a certain night. So there is pockets of this humanity and community. And obviously you can get the wrong end of community and start getting into the territory of cults and that kind of thing. And I think that sometimes community, you can get community wrong, as well. But I think that there are pockets of it. And so I would say that even in Joburg, even in Fourways, there are probably people going against the grain, and there are probably people who are creating that sense of community. It's just a case of how do you find it, and how do you plug into it, and how do you bring others into it and challenge that narrative to an extent. I know for me, a thing that challenged that narrative for me was Zulu class at UKZN. Obviously, UKZN, everyone had to do conversational Zulu as one of their courses. And I remember the lecturer mentioning how important it is in African culture to acknowledge another person. And I think just as a person, that's something that I believe in. But how she mentioned that she had heard people referred to as white ghosts because white people walking past wouldn't necessarily acknowledge or raise a hand or, as you say sure, how's it, whatever. And I remember that struck me and challenged me deeply, because around the similar time or just after that, my car was stolen.
Your tears,
It was an old City Chico.
City, yes.
But it was the year that I was interning at the church, so just after university. And I remember realizing, because at that stage I then moved in with my grandparents to be closer to church, so that I could be walking to church, because I didn't have the money to purchase a new car, and insurance payout was so minimal it wasn't going to cover another car. And I was fortunate to have received that car from family. So I just remember noticing how different it is driving versus walking on the streets, because when you're driving, you're insulated, closed off from the outside environment. When you're walking, I'm walking past you like this, like it's almost more difficult to not greet you because we're walking past each other. So like I can look at you and then awkwardly look down at the phone or something, or I can look at you and greet you. And to be honest, I think some people, when I was being intentional about greeting, some people would walk past me and think, oh, this person's not going to greet me. And so they would kind of look down at their phone. And then when I would greet, they would look up and almost be surprised and greet me back. And there would be a moment for interaction that was human connection. But I think that sometimes you've just got to be the one to challenge that and do that. And almost it allows space for the other person to also then create that human connection.
Crazy.
So grateful for people that have pulled that out in my life, and then the intentionality to create that space for other people.
It's powerful.
Yeah. How do we create human connection is the question that challenges me still.
Back to your career. 2020 started with HR. But you studied
a business
science degree, and then you started your
specialization.
and then you started your career in HR. How was that transition?
Yeah, so I think it probably started. Look, when I think back to it, I've always thought, like, how do I build a path that makes sense and like what am I passionate about? Like that's always been the thing. Like how do I make a difference and what am I passionate about? And that was even in matric. I thought I have no idea what I want to do. So let me just apply to all of the things. I'd literally applied to psychology as a first choice, marine biology as a second choice because I was interested in biology. I applied to accounting somewhere because I thought, it's something that a lot of people do. I'd applied to engineering somewhere else, and I just thought, when it comes to the end of the year and I have more of an idea of what I want to do, then I can, if I've got into it, go to that university. And so I kind of kept my options open. But I think that at that stage, psychology was my first choice because I was very interested in how do people think and how do you drive change from a social psychology perspective and from the way people think. And as much as I got into a couple of those programs, at that stage, I was also getting involved in the church. And I felt like God was calling me to intern and give a year to him. And so I interned before university for a year and I interned for a year after university at the church.
Okay.
And but matric, I felt that God was calling me to this year of service and I interned. And during that year, as I said, I'd been interested in psychology, but during that year, I thought, if I'm interested in something, I can pursue it out of interest and do self-learning on it. I'm not interested in being a psychologist. Therefore, I'm not going to pursue the degree of psychology. And so I thought, how do I get a degree that's as broad as possible that can be useful in as many places as possible? And so engineering then comes up, or a Bachelor of Business Science, right? And technology is everywhere. Therefore, I wanted to have that technology background. And I was quite interested in coding. Like I had done it in matric. I had also done very well in biology in matric, but I wasn't interested in medicine. Like it wasn't, it kind of freaked me out a little bit. So I wasn't too keen on cutting up cadavers and that kind of thing. So I knew medicine was out. But business science with an IT specialization seemed like a really good route for a broadly transferable degree where I could learn lots. And so I applied to that, UCT, UKZN. Some things shifted. I got accepted to both, but the timing of it, the context of it, it just made more sense to go to UKZN. Haven't regretted that once. It was definitely the right choice. So did that for 4 years. Gave me a broad business fundamentals and a deeper sense of software development, programming, information systems for business. Like I said, when I finished university, I applied to Unilever in my final year because I didn't want to go to banks. I didn't want to go. A lot of my peers at university went to different banking programs to do software development. And I didn't feel that was where I could make a social difference. And I'm sure you can, but it didn't feel like the direction that I wanted to go in. And so, like I said, Unilever, for their purpose-driven mission, I wanted to join them. And I thought, well, what is the function? Because they didn't have an IT option for joining on the UFLP program. So what is the functional option that's most in line with business science and with computer science? And I thought supply chain, logistics, planning, forecasting, that sort of thing. And so I applied to supply chain and I didn't get in. And like I said, I then spent the year at church, and that year I applied across a whole lot of functions for the UFLP.
The following year now, in
2019, I worked at the church and I just applied to all the functions. And I just thought, I don't care what function it is, I just want to get my foot in the door. And it just so happened that HR, which I had applied to just as like a shot in the dark, like, backup option type thing. I found that the interview was easy because I was able to answer the questions based on
your experience.
So youth development work, facilitating volunteers, holding brainstorming, event planning type things. And just the focus on human nature and human interaction, those skills came in handy for the HR interviews. And so it's just that HR was the route that opened up for me because of the stuff that God had lined up for me previously. And so doors opened in HR, and I loved it because my passion, like I said, was very much at the time, and still to a large extent, around youth development and youth employability, right? At that stage, the youth unemployment rate in the country, I think, was around 63%. And so that was a huge pain point for me that I knew, hey, there's an opportunity to address this. And I remember Ravani, who was the talent and organization director for Africa at the time, she did my final interview with me, and it was quite a long interview, but she mentioned to me some of the work that Unilever was doing on youth employability through the Level Up program.
Level Up, yeah.
And she thought that there was a really cool opportunity for me to leverage some of the experiences I'd had in youth development in this space. And I thought, that's incredible. That would be awesome. And I thought one day it would be great to be able to do that. And literally within the first year, I was able to have some conversations, and people heard that I was passionate about it. And we were working on a global pilot project for youth employability because we were working on a social commitment around youth development. And so I managed to connect with a global team working out of the UK and joined this pilot project, this small group of people, to set up this website for Level Up, focused on youth development. And so it was literally something that I thought was a one-day goal, that by the end of my first year in Unilever, I was able to work on it. And the very next year, the next role that I moved into was youth employability lead for South Africa, working on leading the Level Up agenda. And so it was such an incredible path that I didn't think I would take. I thought, I'm going to join Unilever and I'm going to jump around. So once I'm in, I'll go and do some marketing work. I'll go do some sales work. I'll go do some, and just try and learn the broad basics of the business. And instead, the first 2 years was actually spent fully focused on youth development. And I loved that.
Which was it was a nice shift, because you did your full year of interning, working with the youth. Now it's more like a continuation.
Exactly.
Oh my God. So hey, God works in different ways, huh?
Yep. And then being on the UFLP program, the goal of that program is to jump around and develop a broad set of skills. And obviously being in the HR program, I needed a little bit more HR generalist experience. And so I then ended up working in our Maiden Wharf factory, which was our oldest factory in South Africa, since I think 1912 or somewhere around there. So it's more than 100 years of operation, maybe 1918. I'm going to get my dates wrong, sorry. But Maiden Wharf, it's our second oldest factory globally for Unilever. And so getting to spend time in that factory on the floor and see what does operations look like on the ground for a big, fast-moving consumer goods company, incredible. Totally incredible experience.
Question there.
Yeah.
What is the difference between working in the head office and then now you're working in the factory? I'm sure it's completely different. Tell us about that.
So a big part of my experience of the difference, we got to also remember that we joined Unilever 2020 as COVID shut down. Right? And so our first day working was the first day that Unilever said everybody work from home globally. So for the first 2 years, I'd worked remotely with teams in different places. We weren't really going to the office much for the first year and a bit. And then we started going to the office, but it was
still again
part was hybrid model.
Yes.
And so I hadn't worked much with teams face to face for the first part of my corporate career. So I think the biggest focus or the biggest difference that I found working in factory was now I was face to face with people. And for me, that was energizing. I enjoy working with people face to face. So that was a big difference. But I think aside from that, which is less about factory and more about the COVID context, the biggest difference I found with working at factory was the level of responsibility at a more junior hierarchical level potentially. And so there are work level ones, as we would call it, who are managing large teams as unit managers, right? And so they're not actually managers from a work level perspective, but they have that same level of responsibility from a people management perspective on the floor. That's a big one. Another big one is that because it's almost like its own unit as a company, and there's the planning team, there's the HR team, there's the engineering team, there's the ops team, right? You get to see your impact in the work that you do as an HR function, whether it be through learning, through different activations and the events that we host. You get to see that impact on the other parts of the business in the way that the factory operates and the efficiencies on the shop floor. In the bigger corporate context of Unilever as a whole, when you're working in the head office, you don't necessarily see that impact of the work that you're doing on the output of the company.
Mm.
It's a lot more
That immediate impact type.
Exactly.
Okay.
Whereas when you're in the factory, it almost feels like its own little sub-unit and its own smaller company. And so you know all the people you're working with across the different functions, and you can see that impact a lot more deeply.
Nice.
I think.
Okay,
that's immediately, which is definitely a motivating and energizing experience.
Nice. So when you moved from the factory, you went back to head office.
So I actually moved into a global team. Like I said, I was very interested in learning about how change happens. And so I'd been able to spend 2 years working on talent and youth development. I'd spent a year understanding what does it look like to really create change
on the ground,
in a factory environment. And then an opportunity opened up in what they call the Global Transformation Office. So this was a team that had been put together for one of our restructures. And we might have a bit of a break here because we've got some dogs coming to say hello.
Who's this one now?
So this one is not actually one of our dogs. This is just a visiting dog that's visiting with my brother.
Oh, so he's visiting this one?
Yeah, I don't actually know that dog's
name. Okay. Hey, your brother brings all different types of...
He helps with training dogs and
where is he working?
So he works with a guy named Grant.
Okay.
So I mean, he'll obviously mostly just go to dog parks and that sort of thing.
And they train.
Yeah, he'll sometimes work with people.
So also that one is also going to be a service dog.
No,
I love that one.
Probably not. That one probably won't be a service dog.
I love that one.
Yeah, no, very cute.
I love big dogs.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Let's continue. Yes.
So this transformation office was set up to be almost like an internal consultancy within Unilever. It had been set up to run the Compass transformation, which was the reorganization at a global level in 2022, which we ran as Unilever, which just changed the structure and reporting lines of the business.
Yeah.
So I won't get into the details of that, but it was this restructure in 2022. And so this transformation office team then needed to deal with, now that we've restructured, how do we make sure that these changes land in the way that people work day to day so that people can understand it and work in the new operating model? And so there was an opportunity to join the change management team of this global transformation office. And I thought that's an incredible experience to be able to see how does change get managed at a global level across the world when that scale of change is happening. And so I joined this transformation office. Again, it was like a dream role of thinking this is something I could do one day and being able to do it now.
Because that was
2022.
Yeah,
started that role. 2020, 2021, no, 2023, sorry. 2023, I started that role. So 2022 was my year in factory. So I spent 2 years doing
the youth employability.
Factory 2022, 2023
was the
transformation office. And it was an incredible group of people. It was the first time that I got to travel for work, which was amazing. When I sat in that interview, when I applied for the role, it was a case of you won't move as part of this role. So you'll still do it remotely from wherever you're based, as long as you're within a European time zone. And I thought that's perfect because I can get the global exposure, but also
still be here.
Stay in the country that I love, working with the church that I enjoy and where I'm well rooted. And so it was perfect opportunity. And then in the interview, I remember the director saying to me, and every now and again we come together as a team. So, there'll be an opportunity for travel, which will be cool. And I just play it off. Don't smile or get too excited. Just nod and agree. And, and I thought if I get to even do that once, that'll be incredible. But it wasn't why I was taking the job. It wasn't even something that I thought I didn't think that they would fly me out. I was relatively junior. There's no reason really
need for you to go. Yeah.
But the nature of that team meant that it made sense for them to come together regardless of your level of seniority. And it was quite a small team. And actually those times together as a team hugely benefited our productivity and efficiency as a team when we were then working remotely. So long story short, finishing from factory, I joined this global team. And again, it was going to remote working where no one I worked with was even in the same country as me. And that was definitely a challenge. And I knew it would be a challenge. But like I said, those times where we got to come together as a team helped create that human connection that then allowed us to work more efficiently together when we were remote and in our different countries. And that team was incredible. It was about 40 people, more than 20 nationalities.
Sure.
So like the cultural learnings, and the team members were from work level 5 all the way to work level 1 kind of thing. Like, so there was this very small team, diverse in terms of seniority, diverse in terms of nationality. So just that was probably that year and a half, 2 years with that team was my favorite experience working with Unilever so far.
It's crazy. So what would be your like the one of the biggest challenges that you faced in this role?
The transformation.
Yes, the transformation role. And how did you navigate through that challenge?
It's not an answer that really is too helpful to the question, because my challenge in that role wasn't actually related to the role. It was related to personal stuff ongoing at the same time.
Okay.
So there were some health issues in my family at the time, and it just meant that I needed capacity, to focus on supporting the family and being around.
Yes.
And so there was a lot of emotional strain for me while I was in this team. And why that was difficult was because I then felt like I wasn't performing to my full within the team. So I joined this team. Like I said, it was this very small team of who I believed were incredibly high performers. And I think that is true, but I'm going to say that that's my opinion of this team. They were super inspiring. And because of the scale of what they were working on, it meant that they were often working at a hugely fast pace, under incredible pressure, and pulling together as a team to make that work. So it was the kind of team that I really wanted to come into and hit the ground running and put my best foot forward and really put in the work to lift the level of the team and really contribute and give my fair share, because they, at the end of the day, trusted me by giving me this position. So therefore, I really wanted to show my best. And I felt that the context around me at the time didn't quite allow me to show my best.
that potential.
And a lot of the feedback that I received doesn't validate that. Like, I think that people were happy with my performance, and I think that I was still a valued member of the team. And so maybe the challenge there is imposter syndrome. But I knew that even if I was adding value, I knew that there was more value I could have added. But I don't regret taking the time that I did and giving the mental and emotional attention that I did to other things and taking it away from work. And I think where I was hugely privileged is that there were people in the team who understood that and said, and helped me to prioritize that, and said, rather go and, give the attention where it's needed. And so not every corporate environment is like that. And that's why I really appreciated that team. But the challenge there was, from a work perspective, I joined that team. My manager left the team maybe 2 or 3 months after I joined. And so then it was just me and the director until another manager was employed, but that manager was only employed 4 months later. And so for a large part of it, it was working in a new environment in a new set of stakeholders who are very senior, trying to figure out how to manage those dynamics and deliver the work when the team is not fully resourced necessarily. And I'm expected to be operating at a level above what my actual technical hierarchy or work level is. So that was the challenge, but those kind of challenges call you up into, you can then step up into that space, and they allow you room to, grow. And so that was, as much as it was a challenge, it was also a benefit.
Because
the amount of learning I got to do in that space, working directly with the change lead and the director in that team. She was an incredible manager, one of the best I've had. And I have huge appreciation for her.
That's powerful. Okay, cool. Then once that project was done, because that's where, for me, it gets interesting, right? Once the project was done, then you were floating around, you're coming back to the head office. No, there's another role. And then you went to IT. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the nature of that team is that it wasn't necessarily a permanent feature. It wasn't a permanent function. It was established to see out the campus transformation.
Yeah.
And then any transformation projects that were across business groups or across functions that couldn't be owned by a single business group or by a single function. Because if it's within the function can lead it. If it's within the business group, the business group can lead it.
Yes.
So anything that was across multiple areas of the business, it was then overseen by the transformation office. And so there were a couple of different projects, but the nature of our staffing was related to the needs of the project. So I joined to do change management for the campus change that we had already undergone, but there was now this change program that needed to be overseen. And so I joined for that change management focus. But as we then started picking up new projects, it was a case of which project does it make sense for me to then jump into. And so there was that project. There was a different sales function transformation that I then joined afterwards because that director then left as well. So my manager left a couple months later, the director left. And so I ended up working with a different director who was based in the US. And he was leading the HR people agenda as part of the sales transformation. And so I jumped into the sales transformation, a bit of change management there. And then what started coming through was what we later called the productivity program. And so that had kind of started, it was almost as much of a surprise to us as it was to the broader business. But it was a question of, well, are we the team that also sees out this productivity program, which was another restructure that started at the beginning of 2024 with the announcement that we would be demerging our ice cream business.
Yes.
And as part of that ice cream demerger, there would also be a transformation to increase productivity and essentially save 800 million euros of cost across the business globally. And so there was this announcement that was made, and the transformation office now was in this place of, well, if we didn't know about this, are we the ones that are going to be seeing this out, or is someone else going to be? The answer to that, it left us in a lot of uncertainty, and that's why it was like, where am I going to go? What's my next job? Am I going to have a part of this? Am I not going to have a part of this? And some of the transformation office did move into new roles and new teams, into local roles. The focus of that team was more so for people to come into it, spend time working on the project, develop a skill set, and then go back into a local business. Because at the end of the day, results are driven by the local business. And so there's no point in having people caught up in this central expertise. That was the view of the leaders of that team. It wasn't the view of everyone in the team. I think the different arguments can be made for centrally led expertise. But again, I won't go into that now. So I was very uncertain of whether I would have a role still in the team or whether I needed to find something different. But I was super passionate about this work. This work was interesting for me. I still had lots to learn in the space. And so some people moved on to the next things, and the rest of the team largely did then transition into being the team that ran productivity with an external consultant supporting it, essentially. And so we worked hand in hand with this consultancy to then deliver the productivity program. And that was a very stressful year. I think across the business, obviously, when you say that 7,500 people are potentially going to be impacted and 800 million euros worth of reductions, it is a big impact. And I think that was all over the news. It was something that people felt from a human perspective. People felt it, right? And just because we were the team that was doing that didn't mean that we were feeling it.
You're busy chopping people there. Who am I going to chop? Who am I going to chop?
It wasn't. It was the case of what are the needs of the future organization to make it sustainable? And how do we then design an organization that fits that? And so we were supporting with that process. But we ourselves were also, we knew that come the end of that project,
we don't have a job.
Because this transformation office no longer existed. It was now the productivity team, but that productivity team had a finite duration. And so we knew that come the end of that project, we didn't have jobs.
So you're busy cutting people, yet your job is also...
I don't want to make it as like black and white as that. It's just cutting people.
I know.
It's not, right? It's defining the future of those people, and it's defining the future of the organization. And so it's not something that we took as lightly as that, you know. But yeah, so it was definitely quite an intense year. And come the end of the year, I didn't know what I was going to do. And after having a brief coffee catch up with one of my friends who I'd worked closely with in the transformation office. They had moved across to the ice cream business to help with that separation. And they said, oh, well, there's actually this position that's opening up in the IT function. And if you're interested, quickly talk to this person who's the hiring manager for the role. And so I reached out with them. I put 15 minutes in their diary and I said, hey, I've heard about this role. I'd just like to understand what are the requirements for it? Can I still apply? What is what kind of person are you looking for? Just to have a brief chat. And that escalated quite quickly and moved into then having an interview for that and submitting an application. And really, it was quite a quick turnaround time, such that within the next couple of weeks, they were offering me a job.
I remember.
Needed to start the next year. And so it meant that, and I got that job offer on Christmas Eve.
I
went into the Christmas holiday not knowing if I even
what's
had a
going
job
on. Yeah, that was terrible.
I put time in my diary, and I just thought, I really hope they're not putting 15 minutes in my diary on Christmas Eve to tell me that I didn't get a job, And so fortunately they said, let's make this quick. The job's yours if you'd like it. And obviously that's where having the background in IT was helpful. Even though I hadn't done any IT, but this wasn't an IT technical job. It was an IT change, communication, and project management.
Which is what you were
exactly
actually doing.
What I'd been doing in the transformation office, but I needed to have some of the IT foundations. So it was quite a unique role in that you needed the change and communications understanding, and you needed the project management discipline, which is probably where I was a little bit weaker, but I knew that I could develop that. And so, come the beginning of that year, I needed to double hat, as they would say, where I was still closing out some of the productivity work that I had been working on and then picking up some of the ice cream work. And then from March this year, 2025, I've been full steam ahead into ice cream.
Ice cream business.
July was our day zero, as we call it, which is the official internal separation, where we are now operating as our own legal entity, still within Unilever and still a part of Unilever. And come November, we will list publicly on 3 different stock exchanges, with Amsterdam being the primary, and the Magnum Ice Cream Company will be its own thing.
That's amazing, because after this I'm going to chat to Anthony Joseph, you know him, right? And my previous boss. I want to talk about it. I'll tell him that I was chatting to you. So now that's what you are currently doing, right? Tell me about this nomination that you had. There's this, tell me about it.
The Rising Star
Awards. I know that Shekho won it, I think it was 2 years back.
Yep.
I'm still going to look for her and find her, probably have a conversation with her as well.
I knew about it because we worked with this company, Grad Star. And so a lot of our youth development stuff, we had worked and done some webinars and worked with the Grad Star Awards, which obviously recognizes student talent within the country. And so they also have then for early career professionals, anyone between the ages of 28, so it's maybe early to mid-career, anyone between the ages of 28 and 40, they have what they call the Rising Star Awards. And so it's the same company that kind of supports both initiatives. And I was aware of it because of having worked with the Grad Star team, but also because Checho had been a part of it. And so Checho, who we had joined the UFLP with, she incredibly inspiring person, and she had won this Rising Star Award in 2023. And so it's something where you can be nominated for it, or you can nominate yourself for it. There is a consideration for me to one day go and do an MBA and do business school, because like I said, I don't know what the next few years look like for me. I think that there could be an opportunity to pivot into a more general management type direction. And I think that business school could have benefit. I don't know when that is from a time perspective. I'm not hugely motivated by awards and recognition and that sort of thing. I'm motivated by learning, having an impact, and helping people.
No, Baxter. Stop making. Stop making this. This thing is big.
The point.
This thing is big, man.
I nominated myself for this award because I knew that it could potentially benefit business. I wasn't too interested in the actual award. I think the award is incredible, and I think that it's an awesome way to bring people together and create a network of professionals across industries, across the country, and recognize people who are putting in hard work. And so I think it's incredible. And I think that obviously seeing Checo win it was inspiring. So I nominated myself for it just to see, how far could I get in the process, and could that then be a potential additional point on a business school application?
Because you are in the finalist now.
Yeah.
So it's a big thing, man.
For the award, you submit a detailed kind of questionnaire answering some questions around their judging criteria, which are focused on kind of innovation, vision, leadership potential, that sort of thing. So you fill out the survey, you fill out this form, you submit it for the judges review it, and they select a set of semi-finalists, which is the top 10 essentially based on these submissions, the top 10 within your industry. So I applied under FMCG manufacturing. And there's 12 different categories for this. So the top 10 get selected as semi-finalists, and you then have to do a video interview, similar to what we did for UFLP. It's like you get asked a question, it automatically starts recording, and it automatically cuts off the recording, and you then submit these answers. And from that, the judges then review it, and they select the top five finalists. And so I was privileged enough to be selected as a finalist, which means I was part of the top 5.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
And these 5 then had to go to Johannesburg and essentially spend 3 hours with judges. So you spend an hour, there's kind of a bit of buffer time, but you spend an hour, you get given a case study with some information and some questions, and you have an hour to prepare a presentation for the judges. And you then spend an hour, you've got 15 minutes to present back your case study. And then it's questions and conversation with the judges. And they then use that information. I think there were 4 or 5 judges, different HR directors, HR leaders, CEOs within the FMCG industry in South Africa. And so really a cool opportunity to just present back, and challenge myself on the case study, but then also get to pick the brains a little bit of the judges when they say, what questions do you have for us? To senior leaders across different companies within your industry. So it's a cool opportunity to just engage in that space. So,
and I haven't seen that in your LinkedIn, by the way. I said you must put it in LinkedIn.
Spoken about it too much,
Just put it in LinkedIn.
It's there. It's as a byline in the bio, I think. I
haven't seen a post that says, hey, come on. Make it a big deal. Make it a big deal.
When we go for the final.
When is it?
The 8th of October.
Make it a big deal, man. Take a picture, post on LinkedIn.
We will.
Update your community.
We will.
We are your community.
I'm not doing very well at updating LinkedIn.
Please.
Across any other things. Apart from when I joined the Magnum Ice Cream Company, I haven't really spoken much on LinkedIn.
It's like, I don't know who's Baxter on LinkedIn. Come on, man. Come on. Okay, we're coming to a close of our conversation. What would you say to someone who's doing their final year and they're hoping to get into the FMCG space or the corporate space, not necessarily in FMCG, whatever industry it is? What would you tell them? What is this one thing like you would want them to know and to take it like as an advice when they get into that space, during application, during interviews, and finally into the workplace, that one advice you would give them? Let's look at them and then tell them.
There are too many pieces of advice. I'll start by answering the question as simply as I can. Focus on human connection. Don't lose human connection because of performance, because of demands of career growth, that sort of thing. Focus on human connection and learning. At the end of the day, and I think they need to hear this before final year, because it's a behavior you have to practice, and you should be practicing that from first year, from high school, right? The stuff that really distinguishes people in a corporate space often is your ability and willingness to learn and add value, even if it's doing the ugly work, right? And so a lot of the jobs that I've got in those moves have been because of connections that I've created with people. Now, that's not to say that, like, at the end of the day, Unilever has policies around open job posting. The fact that jobs have to be posted and they have to be a competitive process. So you can't just get a job because you know someone. But by knowing someone, having conversations, you can ask questions like, if I want to do this job one day, what are the kind of skills that I can develop now that can help me, develop for this type of job?
Yeah.
Or someone who knows me might go, hey, I know that this job is going to be posted, and I know that the kind of work you've already done could be very valuable in that space. And so some places, for my global transformation office role, I got lucky. I was on the job postings. I saw a posting about it. I applied for it.
Yeah.
For this IT role, someone I was having a conversation with, because I'd created human connection, said, I think you'd be good for this role. And they pointed it out to me. I wouldn't have known about it otherwise. So having that connection is so valuable. And I think sometimes people can lose it because they're so focused on performance.
I have to.
Don't try and rush that stuff. Like, build the connections and learn. Like, at the end of the day, we came into UFLP saying it's a 2 to 4 year program.
Yes,
and on average, you maybe promise, not necessarily promise, but there's this understanding that maybe you'll be a manager by 3 years in.
Yeah.
It's not the reality for most people, right? I was only promoted to manager after 5 years. Technically. But much before that, I feel that I was operating at a level where people trusted me with the kind of... I don't feel that my responsibility has significantly jumped since I've become officially a manager, if that makes sense. And that's because I was open to adding value, learning, and helping people where I could, long before I had any official responsibility to. And so find places to put your hand up, find ways to learn, and find ways to engage with people.
That human connection, the same human connection you begin with, comes right back to it now.
Like I said, for me, that's always going to be the guiding star. And being able to, like, everybody has that innate worth and that innate ability. And I would almost want to close on this. Like, you spoke about it earlier, the fact that anyone can be a leader, even if you don't have that official title.
Yes.
I always thought leadership, captaincy, that sort of thing was a binary 1-0. Like, either you have it or you don't. You're born as a leader, you have that innate skill, or you don't. And it was at church, at youth, in my matric year, where someone said to me, hey, why don't you join us for the volunteer meetings? Because I think you could be a leader here one day. Well, me? A leader? No chance. I wasn't a prefect in school. I wasn't a captain of any of my teams. I wasn't a leader. I didn't have that binary, yes, he's a leader. And so now someone's telling me I can be a leader. That's a complete paradigm shift for me. But it unlocks a belief in me that goes, oh, maybe leadership is more than what I thought it was. And a different person a year later says to me, leadership is a skill that you can develop. Leadership, his view on leadership, and it comes from different leadership experts, is that leadership is nothing but intentional influence. And so as long as we have people that are around us and a circle of influence, at the end of the day, we can have influence over the people around us. We just then get to choose whether we're going to leverage that influence intentionally or not. And we can use that in a bad way, or we can use that in a good way. But if we realize that we have influence on people, every single person who engages with another person has the potential to influence people, and therefore has the potential to be a leader. And I'm not saying coerce, I'm not saying coercion, like in a negative way, trying to get people to do what you want. It's not that. I know that my actions have impact on other people, therefore I need to be intentional about the way that I act. Like I said about greeting, it allows space for other people to then reciprocate. And that's intentional influence. You lead people into a space of human connection. And so that leadership paradigm of anyone can be a leader and you can develop your ability to lead is probably actually the pivotal turning point for me early in my career that allowed me to grow into the spaces that I have. I've still got so much to learn. Like, some people might disagree with some of those learnings. I don't care if I'm never the VP or president or CEO. If I keep a focus on leading where I am in such a way that uplifts other people, that's always going to be my focus.
Those are the closing words of Michael Baxter. Michael John Bizo Baxter. Thank you, my brother. Appreciate the time, man. Appreciate the insights. I don't know, maybe next year I might come in again and say, let's have a conversation. Follow up, and then we see where that leads. But appreciate the time. We've been on this thing for hours. What was it, Wanga? Almost over an hour having this conversation. Obviously, me and you, when you're having that coffee and tea, you can talk for hours and hours.
Mentioned the fact that we're board members together.
Can you believe we haven't discussed about SAST, where we haven't discussed about the hours, the AIT.
It'll have to be another.
We have to have that conversation. But thank you so much, man. There you have it, folks. On Let's Talk Corporate Life. Please subscribe, share with other people. Let's grow this community together. Until next time, cheers. Baxter, my guy.